I want to talk about my biggest sleeper team in the Pac-12 heading into the 2022 college football season. And it's going to be Oregon State. And I want you guys to bear with me because many of you guys are probably going to listen in to the first 30 seconds and click off because you're going to say, oh, this guy's a fool. Oregon State? Are you for real, fam? Yes, I am for real. But I do have a pretty good track record when it comes to predicting sleeper teams, not only in the NFL, but in college football as well. If you go back and you watch my videos from last year, I said Arkansas was going to be the most improved team in the SEC. Well, not only in the SEC, but in college football. Look what happened. Same thing with Ole Miss. I said that. Don't be surprised if Ole Miss ends up being in second place in the SEC West. Look what happened. So when you look at Oregon State, it was either them or Washington. I went with them simply for the fact that I don't think you can view Washington as a sleeper team because their over-under win total is 7.5. You look at Oregon State, this is a team that is coming off one of the better seasons that they've had in a very long time under head coach Jonathan Smith, who is going to be going into his 5th year with this program. And despite the fact that they went 7-6, they started off the season pretty hot. They went 5-2. They had a big upset at home against Utah, winning 42-34. And then after their 5-2 start, things kind of started to cool off for them a little bit momentum-wise. They lost to Utah State in their bowl game. But if you're looking at the Beavers, you're wondering if they can take that next step. And what is that next step, you may ask? Well, that next step is probably being able to reach the plateau of 8 wins, right? Their over-under win total is only 5.5, which I definitely feel they have a good chance being able to win a bare minimum of 6 games. And they have a good amount of talent that comes back on both sides of the football. You have quarterback Chance Nolan, who is going into his 2nd season as the starting quarterback. Last year, he was pretty solid. He doesn't have outstanding numbers, but if you go and you watch his performances, he was pretty solid. He did have some up and down games, but for the most part, he's pretty solid. I think that he's going to take a major step in development this year. You also have a pretty good group of running backs, despite the fact that you lost your leading rusher in B.J. Baylor. You have true freshman Damian Martinez, who is 5'10", 220 pounds. He was a 3-star recruit coming out of this past year's recruiting class. And he has pretty much been the talk of spring camp for Oregon State. He's been really impressive. A lot of coaches have been really thrilled with how fast he's picked up the scheme in the playbook. So look for him to have a pretty solid role this year on this team. You also have Desean Fenwick, who probably is the best running back that you have on the team at the moment. 78 carries, 448 rushing yards, 5.7 yards per attempt, and 4 touchdowns in 2021 for him. You also have Trey Lowe, who's also really productive, coming off a solid 2021 campaign as well. You return 3 out of 5 starters on the offensive line. You actually had 3 of your starters who were selected to Athlon Sports Pac-12 preseason team. So this offensive line is going to be really solid. You do have a couple of positions that still needs to be filled out, but for the most part, you should be able to have a pretty solid time being able to handle yourself against some of the more lesser teams in this conference, such as Colorado, Arizona State, Arizona. When it comes to the wide receiver position, you did lose your leading wideout from last year, Trayvon Bradford, but you have Treshaun Harris, who was 2nd on the team in yards, receptions, and touchdowns. You also have Tyjon Lindsey, Anthony Gold. Then you have tight end Luke Musgrave, which last year he only had 1 touchdown, 22 receptions, and 304 receiving yards. I definitely feel that he's going to have a bigger impact in the passing game this year. So offensively, this is probably going to be one of the better offenses that you're going to find in the Pac-12 conference this year. Maybe the most underrated offense in the Pac-12 this year, because this was an offense that last year was really good. They didn't have too many games where they struggled to put up points until the tail end of the season. So you look at the defense. Now, the defense is probably the biggest question mark, and it may be why a good amount of you guys, if you're not an Oregon State fan, may be against this team being the biggest sleeper team in this conference, because the defense wasn't great getting off the field in third down situations. As a matter of fact, they had the worst third down defense in college football last season. On top of that, they struggled to stop the pass, and a large reason for their struggles in the passing game was because they didn't have a good pass rush. As a matter of fact, they were one of the worst teams in all of college football when it came to getting pressure on the quarterback. However, you look at their outside linebackers and their defensive line going into this season. We don't know how good the defensive line is going to be per se. They have a couple of guys that they're banking on to take a big step in improving this all season, but we don't really know how they're going to perform. But their coaching staff has a lot of confidence in the depth that they have at outside linebacker. They may not have as much confidence in the defensive line as they do when it comes to outside linebacker, but this coaching staff feels as if this is the deepest that they've been at outside linebacker in a while. You have Corey Stover, who could take a major leap this year. You also have a 4-star transfer from the University of Florida and Andrew Chatfield Jr. He was a 4-star coming out of the 2018 recruiting class. He transferred to Oregon State during the 2021 season, so he didn't play. And despite the fact that he didn't see a lot of action during his playing career with the Gators, 2020, he did have a little bit of an impact. He had 2.5 sacks, and he did receive a lot of praise over the spring from this coaching staff at Oregon State. So you feel really good about what you're going to get from your linebackers in terms of the pass rush this year. Inside linebacker, you have Omar Speights, 87 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 fumble recoveries, one of the best linebackers in this conference, one of the more underrated defensive players in college football. Your secondary probably is the strength of your team, okay? You have cornerback Rajon Wright. You have Alex Austin, Ron Hardage. You have a lot of experience in this group. Also, when you look at safety, pretty good as well. Jaden Grant, he was third on the team in tackles with 71. He had 7 pass breakups and 2 interceptions. Julian Alton is probably going to be productive as well. So even though this group had its ups and downs last season, for the most part, this is a position that's looking on the up, and they can end up being one of the better secondaries in this conference this year. And with everybody coming back with a added year of experience, that's also going to help this group when it comes to playing more consistent on the field. So when you're analyzing Oregon State's schedule, it's definitely not a schedule that you're going to look at and you're going to say, yeah, JT, I have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to pull off 8 wins this year. But you start off with Boise State at home, 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time kickoff on ESPN. That's going to be a pretty tough game for Oregon State. Boise State is definitely one of those teams that you definitely do not want to open the season off with. But I definitely feel that that is a winnable game. I could see them winning that one. You go on the road to Fresno State the week after. That's going to be a really tough game. Fresno State is one of the best G5 programs in college football going into this season. So that could be a toss-up. But if you're able to win one of those games and you go 1-1 going into Montana State, I think you're in pretty good shape. So then Montana State, you can chalk that up as a victory. Then that's where you get into the meat of your schedule. You enter conference play. You have to play USC, but you do get them at home. You play Utah on the road. That's going to be tough. Then you go on the road to Stanford. Now, we don't really know what Stanford is going to be this year. The last time I checked, their win total was only 4.5. So if Stanford can't get things turned around, that could be a victory as well. So you beat Fresno State or Boise State. You split 1-1 your first 2 games. Okay, you beat Montana State. Then you're able to pull off a win on the road against Stanford. You have 3 wins already. And then you have to play Washington State, which is a game that could go either way. Then you have to play Colorado, so that's 4 wins there. So really now you just need 2 more wins, and you can definitely get them. You play Washington on the road, but you're doing that coming off a bye. Then you play Cal, which Cal isn't really looking to be all that great on paper, so that could be a win. You get the 5. Then you go on the road to Arizona State. That should be a win because Arizona State right now, their program is in a lot of turmoil. We don't really know what's going to happen with Herm Edwards, but you look at Arizona State, they don't have that much talent. Not only are they lacking in the talent department, but they don't have a lot of depth neither. So you should be able to win that Arizona State game. And then you play Oregon on a Friday night at home. You probably will have a tough time winning that one against your rival. But again, it is a rivalry game. And I don't think Oregon State is going to be a team that's going to end up getting blown out by many teams this year in this conference. So I definitely feel that game could be a lot closer than what people think. So all in all, you should be able to find a way to get the 6 wins. You should definitely be able to exceed that 5.5 win total. And then you have a pretty good chance to win that Washington game. So let's say you win that game. Okay, you're at 7 wins. And then let's even say that you're able to go 2-0 and you're out of conference. Let's say you can beat Boise State and both Fresno State. Okay, so what's that? 9 wins at this point? And then you have to see if you can pull off an upset against USC, but you do play them at home, so that's one thing that goes in your advantage. Then you have to go on the road to face Utah. So all in all, this is a program going into this season that at bare minimum should be able to win 6 games. And then if they are playing at their best, I think this ceiling is 9 wins. So I think they'll probably be able to win 7 games this year. I definitely feel that they may be able to pull up an upset. And then you do have a pretty solid schedule where outside of USC and Utah, every game pretty much should be a winnable matchup for you. Maybe Oregon, you may go into that game as a double-digit underdog, maybe. I don't know. I don't really think that Oregon is going to be as great as what they have been in the past, but they are better than Oregon State on paper. But as I mentioned, this is a rivalry. So, these rivalry games are always tending to be pretty closely contested. They could kind of come down to the wire, and you never know what can really happen. So, overall, I'm really excited about the direction that this Oregon State program is heading. And I really hope that I'm not misled from what they did last season, because they did show a lot of promise really early on, and then things kind of started to go left near the middle of the season. So hopefully you can get a more consistent football team, and you can have more consistent play out of the secondary, and maybe be able to have more success when it comes to getting pressure on the quarterback, which you should, because I don't think the pass rush can get any worse from what it was last year. And if the pass rush improves, that's going to help out that secondary also. So let me know how you guys feel about Oregon State football going into the 2022 college football season. I know not too many of you guys probably are going to view them as a sleeper team in the Pac-12. However, I definitely feel this is a team that has a pretty high ceiling, and I think that if you're somebody who likes to bet, I could definitely see them exceeding that 5.5 over/under win total in 2022.